Another day, another story. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled in the mountains of an ancient land, there lived a young girl named Neera. Neera was born with a rare gift, the gift of music. Her fingers danced across the strings of her father's lute, producing melodies that could bring tears to the eyes of even the toughest warrior. Neera's parents recognized her gift and nurtured it, sending her to the finest music teachers in the land. As she grew older, Neera's talent only continued to grow. She played at festivals and celebrations, and people traveled from far and wide to hear her play. Despite her success, Neera remained humble and dedicated to her craft. She spent long hours practicing and experimenting with new techniques, always striving to push herself to the next level. One day, a traveling bard came to the village. He was an old man, his face weathered and lined with age. His hair and beard were long and grey, and he carried a lute that had seen better days. But when he played, his fingers danced across the strings with a skill and passion that left Neera in awe. Neera approached the bard and asked him to teach her all he knew. The bard agreed, but warned her that the path to mastery was not an easy one. He told her that to truly become a master musician, she would need to dedicate herself completely to her craft. She would need to practice tirelessly, and face her fears and doubts head-on. Neera took the bard's words to heart and began to practice even harder than before. She spent long hours studying the techniques the bard had shown her, and she pushed herself to play more and more difficult pieces. But as she practiced, Neera began to feel a growing sense of doubt. She worried that no matter how hard she worked, she would never truly be able to master the art of music. She feared that her gift, which had once brought her so much joy, was now becoming a burden. One day, as Neera was practicing in the forest, she heard a beautiful melody. It was like nothing she had ever heard before, a haunting, ethereal tune that seemed to come from another world. She followed the sound until she came to a clearing, where she saw an old man sitting on a rock, playing a lute. The old man looked up as Neera approached, and he smiled warmly. "Greetings, young musician," he said. "I have been listening to you play, and I must say, your skill is truly remarkable." Neera blushed, feeling a mix of embarrassment and pride. She thanked the old man, and he invited her to sit beside him. "Tell me," he said, "what is it that drives you to play?" Neera thought for a moment before answering. "I love the way music makes me feel," she said. "When I play, I feel like I'm part of something greater than myself. It's like I'm tapping into a wellspring of creativity and passion that flows through the universe." The old man nodded, smiling. "That is a beautiful thing," he said. "But tell me, what do you hope to achieve with your music? What is your ultimate goal?" Neera thought for a moment before answering. "I want to be the best," she said. "I want to master the art of music, and to be able to play anything I want, flawlessly." The old man nodded again, but his smile faded slightly. "That is a worthy goal," he said. "But remember, the true power of music lies not in perfection, but in the emotions it evokes. The best musicians are not those who play flawlessly, but those who play with heart and soul." Neera was struck by the old man's words. She had never thought of music in that way before. For so long, she had been focused on technical perfection and the pursuit of mastery, that she had forgotten the true essence of music. The old man stood up and began to play his lute again, and Neera listened intently. As he played, she felt a stirring in her heart. The melody was not perfect, but it was filled with emotion and soul. It was like the old man was pouring his entire being into his music. Neera realized then that the old man was right. The true power of music lay not in technical perfection, but in the emotions it evoked. She thought back to all the times she had played for crowds, and how the most memorable performances were the ones where she had played from the heart, not just from her fingers. As the old man finished playing, he looked at Neera and smiled again. "Remember," he said, "music is not just about skill and technique. It's about tapping into the universal energy of creativity and expressing it through your own unique voice. Don't worry so much about being perfect. Just play from your heart, and the rest will follow. With those words, the old man stood up and left the clearing, disappearing into the forest. Neera sat there for a long time, reflecting on what he had said. She realized that in her pursuit of technical perfection, she had lost sight of the true essence of music. From that day forward, Neera approached music differently. She still practiced tirelessly, but now she focused on playing with heart and soul. She experimented with new techniques and pushed herself to learn new styles, but she also allowed herself to play freely and to let her emotions guide her music. Over time, Neera's music began to change. She played with a new sense of freedom and passion, and people took notice. Her performances became more intimate and powerful, and she began to connect with her audiences in a way she never had before. Eventually, Neera became known as one of the most soulful and inspiring musicians in the land. Her music touched people's hearts and brought them to tears, and she was beloved by all who heard her play. But for Neera, the true reward was not in the accolades or the praise. It was in the knowledge that she had rediscovered the true essence of music, and that she was playing from her heart, in harmony with the universal energy of creativity. And so, the lesson of the old bard stayed with Neera throughout her life. She continued to practice and push herself, but she always played with heart and soul, knowing that true mastery lay not in technical perfection, but in the ability to express oneself authentically and from the heart. As Neera grew older and her career as a musician continued to thrive, she never forgot the lesson that the old bard had taught her. Neera's music continued to evolve over time, as she explored new genres and experimented with new sounds. But no matter how much her music changed, it always retained the same sense of authenticity and emotional depth that had made her early performances so powerful. As Neera became more well-known, she began to receive invitations to perform at large venues and festivals. She was even invited to play for the royal court, an honor that many musicians dreamed of but few achieved. But despite the pressure and expectations that came with these high-profile performances, Neera never wavered in her commitment to playing with heart and soul. She refused to let her music become a performance or a show, and instead focused on connecting with her audience on a deeper level. And it was this approach that made Neera one of the most sought-after musicians in the land. People came from far and wide to hear her play, and her concerts were always filled with an energy and passion that was hard to describe. As Neera entered her later years, she began to think about what her legacy would be. She had achieved so much as a musician, but she knew that true greatness lay not in personal accolades, but in the impact that one's art could have on others. And so, Neera began to give back to the musical community in new ways. She taught workshops for young musicians, sharing the lessons and techniques that she had learned over the years. She also started a music scholarship program, designed to help underprivileged children receive music lessons and pursue their own musical dreams. Through these efforts, Neera's influence continued to spread even wider. She became a mentor and a role model to countless musicians, inspiring them to approach their art with the same sense of authenticity and passion that had driven her own success. And so, Neera's legacy as a musician was not defined by the awards she won or the crowds she played for, but by the impact that her music had on others. She had shown that true mastery lay not in technical perfection, but in the ability to connect with others on a deep, emotional level. As Neera reflected on her life, she knew that she had achieved everything she had ever wanted as a musician. But more importantly, she knew that she had stayed true to herself and to the lesson that the old bard had taught her so many years ago. And that, to her, was the greatest accomplishment of all.